Now, in terms of the old gods, the Nephilim, the Anunnaki, whatever you want to call these things, they're not human. It's all over the History Channel. They'll tell you they came from aliens, but the genetics, the science, the megalithic structures, all the evidence is there. There is a non-human strain that has been ruling us, living amongst us, being our priestly class, our king class, eating babies, child sacrifice, throwing them to the fire, all of that. The word cannibal comes from the Canaanite priests of Baal eating the babies that they sacrificed on fire. And now Candace Owens is using the word Canaanite clumsily because she has no idea what she's talking about, but she's getting there, bless her, if they let her. So there's a bunch of this coming to the forefront now. People are struggling with these issues, but it all goes back to the Bible. They're not the old gods in the sense of every other religion on earth, which is what they would call them. In Christian sense, they're the Nephilim. Modern terminology might be Anunnaki from the Sumerian, language, but the Nephilim are half demon or part demon, non-human mutants. They're mixed species, something. They're the fallen angels mated with human women in Genesis 6, and that created the Nephilim. And then they got smaller and more diluted since then. That's why they're not giants like Goliath anymore with 6 fingers and 6 toes. I mean, that was literal. He was a literal giant with literally 6 fingers and 6 toes, as were his brothers. It was a genetic thing. That's why God kept saying things like, leave nothing alive, of entire tribes of man, woman, children, animals, everything. Not because God is a bully. I mean, he gave us his only begotten son to die for our sins, but because they are indeed monsters. This is a quarter of the Bible. It's all of the ancient alien show. They just substitute angels for aliens. And they want you to believe in that. Founded and ran by Satanists, by the way, but they'll tell you much of the same evidence that I'll use to prove this stuff. It's real. We have the science. We do debates with PhD scientists, etc. So it really comes down to a matter of, will people look at the evidence? And the fact is, monsters are real. They are running the world. It was all in prophecy, and it's about to play out as the book of Revelation and others said.
Book of Revelation gets fucking nuts. Huge into the fallen angels discussion. I know when you go back, and maybe this doesn't resonate with you, but it resonates with me when you get into like Hinduism and Vedic astrology. They too also talk about God trapping entities down here. So this story has been told over time, and
it's all the same. Every religion on earth tells the same story.
Yeah, I
different names,
different rules for different fools. But
for example, just a lot of people are going to question that. Like, they all have the story of Noah, the flood, surviving a worldwide flood with his 3 sons on a boat and all animals in some variation. They just call him different things. They call him like Utnapishtim in Sumerian, Noah in the Bible. There's different names. They called him marijuana in an actual Indian North American tribe. That's a name in the Flood Museum, the Ark Museum.
Where is that museum?
The big recreation of the Ark. It's in like Ohio or something. I've never gotten a chance to go there, but
where does your journey with Christianity start?
So I started very early as a child with the conspiracy stuff. 16, 17, I got the first computer. My grandparents were getting sick of cancer and, Monsanto and all that stuff. And I started to kind of figure out what was going on with Big Pharma first. And I went down that rabbit hole, started a huge organic garden, started my own greenhouse, tried to save my family. They didn't care. They didn't want to hear it. They just kept eating the poison, kept spraying the poison. But I knew at that point, I knew too much. I couldn't stop. And I just kept digesting like 8 hours a day of knowledge for the rest of my life. Fast forward 20 years, roughly. The last piece of the puzzle for me was the Bible, after I had basically mastered every conspiracy, everything you can imagine in terms of history, theology, science, all of it. And then the Bible with the last piece, the theology. It was the last piece in the sense that I was trying to figure out why the deep state are so evil, why they do the child sacrifice, why all the occult symbolism, why Mystery Babylon, which is the secret society stuff. And when I figured that out, that they're actually worshiping the Nephilim from the Bible, or the old gods of any other religion on earth, same thing, just different perspectives. They basically, they took different perspectives of Genesis from the local demigod Nephilim. That's what these different religions are. And they were worshiping giants. We call them monsters, but same things. Anyway, when I realized that the Nephilim were real, still even today, but back then, yes, the bones, the archaeology, the megalithic structures we cannot reproduce, the stones we cannot move today, like the Baalbek stone, then I started to figure out that the Bible was telling us the truth all along of a literal non-human enemy strain, the seed war of Genesis 3:15, when God told the serpent that its offspring would be at war with the offspring of the woman. at enmity with the seed of the woman. So we have this seed of the serpent that is basically there throughout the Bible. It's what's responsible for killing Jesus, as he constantly rebuked them as of your father the devil, generation of vipers, where I go you cannot follow, seed of the serpent, tares amidst the wheat, etc. Basically, they killed him for calling them genetic demons in public who were pretending to be Israelites and infiltrating our government and religious institutions. John 8:33-44. You just go through that, and they're admitting they were never enslaved. The real Israelites were enslaved. Who does that leave? Edom, the bad guys at the end of the Bible. And if you look at the prophecies, everything Edom was supposed to do, the Jews are doing to us, including invading the West, like America, the land of unwalled villages, yeah, and oppressing us in every way, including all that long list of curses in Deuteronomy, like they would be the head, we would be the tail, they would lend to us, we would not lend to them, etc. All of those horrible things are happening as God promised, because in Judges 2, we were literally told we would have a monster deep state of Jews. And God told us that those tribes that Joshua failed to leave nothing alive, end quote, would become our deep state. He would no longer drive them out from among us and use them to test us if we would keep his law, his way. That's where we are today. Trump is the Antichrist, son of perdition. The Jews are trying to claim the Jew world order, the recreation of Nimrod's old world order, which was the post-flood recreation of the fallen angels' pre-flood world order. The age of Atlantis.
Your belief that the Rothschilds are descendants of Nimrod?
I think they are Amalek. They're the descendants of Edom, the main branch of Edom. And Amalek is like the main family of Edom. Both of them are the remnant of the giants in the Bible, the remnant of that bloodline that God said, leave nothing alive. Esau, which was a brother of Israel, Jacob in the Bible, took two wives of Canaanite blood. And then his offspring were constantly at war with God's people for the rest of the Bible. God even promised war with Amalek every generation. That's us. So I think the Rothschilds are either the Dukes of Edom or Amalek itself. They are certainly a leading role of evil, force for evil in the world.
Let me ask you something. Isn't the belief that the Khazarians came in and kind of hijacked Judaism at some point, that because the Jews were in fact nomadic, they had no homeland, that it was, and they were like out of all the Abrahamic religions, let's just say, they were the most easy to basically be able to co-op?
Well, there's the popular opinion that is a little bit based in reality, but it doesn't go deep enough, that Khazaria was basically in a pinch between two religions, and they had to choose a third choice to stay neutral. And the king of Khazaria did force his entire people to convert to Judaism and learn the language. Interestingly enough, that's where we're getting a lot of the Yiddish from. However, that's not the full depth of the story. What really happened was, in response to Christianity, Judaism, which is younger than Christianity, not older, because Pharisaism came first. And this is a little bit different. But basically, it's Talmudic Pharisaism again. But Judaism came in response to Christianity. The Sephardic Jews, another branch of Canaan, basically reached out to their cousin Canaanites, the other demons, and said, we have a really good grift going on. They actually think we're God's chosen. You should join us. And they said, hell yeah, we're in. And now look at the trouble we're in. People believe this nonsense and rolled out the red carpet to the same people who have continually poisoned our wells and eaten our children and have been kicked out of 109 countries 1,030 plus times for bloodletting babies like St. Simon of Trent or Andrei Yushensky, or opening the gates like the gates of Toledo, where Spain was conquered by Islam for 800 years. Continual, poisoning of the wells. The Black Plague killed 30% of Christians. That was them.
Can I ask you, pulling on the Jesus thread a bit?
Yeah, sure.
Why did Jesus? And you can tell me if this was this is something that's been altered. Why did he celebrate Passover? He observed the Sabbath. Sukkot? He was circumcised. Those are all Jewish celebrations and rites. Am I wrong in that?
So, it's a mistake to call them Jewish, because the Yahudim were one branch of Israel, and the Israelites were a chosen family of Hebrews, but none of them were Jews. Jews came from mixing right before the time of Jesus, a guy named John Hyrcanus I, who's of the family of Judah, the guy in the Bible, who is a Judahite king of the country of Judah. He conquered the bad guys, the Edomites. In Greek, they're called Idumeans. So Edomite or Idumeans, depending on the Bible version. The king of Judahites conquered the Idumeans of Judah, conquered Idumea, formed Idumea into Judea, basically. They merged the country, merged the people. So you have God's chosen people, the Judahites, the Judean Judahites, and you have the Satan's literal children, the Judean Edomites or Idumeans.
Did they all observe these?
Jews, right? They're both Judeans, even though Judea is now a multicultural region. They're not Yahudim. They're not of the bloodline of Judah, though. They have zero evidence for that.
So your argument is a genetic argument, it sounds like. Is that right?
Well, there are peoples, and basically the Bible tells the story of all the peoples. I mean, we know that there are distinct races and groups. Like, where did they come from? The Bible tells us that. Yeah. But the people of like the people of Jesus, the Judahites, the people of Judah, those are what became the Irish people, one of multiple nations that would fulfill many specific prophecies and become a multitude of nations, a blessed multitudinous seed with many, many, many children. Not this one singular nation of like less than 2 to 3% of the world population. They were supposed to go and spread the gospel to the world, for example. The Jews don't spread the word at all. They don't even want you to read it. They're trying to outlaw it. So there's actual evidence, including prophecy, including the Bible descriptions of the people of Israel, the actual family of God, of Abraham, that he promised would do all those things and promised those blessings, and told to go and help the other people of the world to learn about God's word. They were supposed to be an example to the world. The Jews are clearly not the people of Abraham, as Jesus told them in his day. If you were of Abraham, you do the actions of Abraham. They're dropping bombs on babies left and right by the tens of thousands. Our bombs, by the way.
You brought up the plague. How do they tie in with the plague?
They poisoned Christian wells. It only affected Christian communities, not Jewish or Islamic communities, and they poisoned 30% of Christians total. They killed 30% of Christianity in one poison attack across Europe.
Is there genetic evidence to support what you said about the Judahites becoming modern day Irish?
Yeah, we even have Jewish geneticists admitting they're not the actual people of Israel, for example. 97% of Jews, according to Aaron El-Hayek, I think it was, are not of Abraham. And we also have a ton of evidence, including the anthropology, the etymology, the symbolism, the heraldry, the archaeology, that all point toward, and I'm not even just using Bible. I'm not even talking about biblical descriptions and prophecies, but just the actual sciences all point toward the Europeans are the lost tribes, plural, of Israel. For example, 1948, Israel fulfills no verse in the Bible. However, America, 1776, is literally in Leviticus 26:18 by the math. So is the founding of the UK in 1801 AD.
Fascinating.
It's interesting. These are dangerous conversations. dangerous conversations, dude. And I think they're important to have. And I'll tell you why. Now, I don't necessarily agree with you. I know a lot of great Jews. I don't think every Catholic is a pedophile. I don't think every Catholic is co-signing those behavior. I do believe that as you move up in any organization, there tends to be co-opting and the use of data to find out who the psychopaths are and compromise them, position them in certain spots. I'm not necessarily pushing back against you, but I do believe, just my personal thing. Like, I personally think it's the people versus the predator class, and we can get into this thing where we all start fighting each other. Like, it's my theory, like with Islam, right? Like, everybody's like, Islam is a bunch of terrorists. Well, the truth of the matter is that those people are traumatized children who've had their entire countries just annihilated by Western military, destroying everything. And then the only work that's available is to join militias, where you become a proxy army sent in to destabilize other Islamic countries, and then eventually you just get killed off, because then the West is like, oh, we're going to take out ISIS and stuff like that. I get nervous when we start to label an entire group of people.
Yeah, I understand. I do not want to, and I just could not find a way around it with God, wanting to wipe out whole bloodlines. But we have to ask the question, not just why was God mean to this group, but what happened to the Nephilim? Where are the monsters? Did they die out as many people claim? The Bible says they didn't. And I would argue that Amalek has to be one of two groups, white Westerners or the Jews. Now, the Jews are claiming Amalek is the white Westerners. Amalek is the bad guy in the Bible that God wants to wipe out. And in Obadiah 18, they're all wiped out, 100% worldwide. So we don't want to be Amalek, whoever it is, but finding out the truth is important. And there's zero evidence that we are Amalek. There's every single form of evidence that they are Amalek. And they have stolen the identity of Israel. So it is the most dangerous of truths. In fact, this is the most important stuff on earth to know. And this is why our people perish, the knowledge that they need.
Let me ask you something. Do you believe in that the land that is Israel right now is the biblical Israel, or is it? I've heard theories that it's other areas, and that because my theory is that a lot of part of what is going on in Israel is that it is a land bridge that makes it easy to get goods from Europe, from Asia and Africa to Europe. And that's why they want to control it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So, yeah, I don't have a problem with it being Jerusalem, but God took Jerusalem away from the Israelites and never gave it back and promised that they would get a different land in the north. So, like the Jews or the Israelites, none of them have any claim to steal this land from all those Arabs and kill all those babies. It was taken from us. The actual Israelites are the Western Europeans, and we were given new lands after a period of exile and punishment, according to Leviticus 26:18, which is where we get America. So Israel, in the sense, depending on where you're talking about it, but generally the word Israel means the people, not the country, especially like the latter times, in times.
Aliens, Aleister Crowley talked about how angels and demons will be called a different name, and a lot of people believe that is aliens. Your whole thoughts on that? I think I know, but what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I don't believe in that. My favorite thing is how, 1 second, the U.S. government's like, there's this red balloon and we can't do anything about it. And then 2 weeks later, it's like, we shot down this craft from another planet. You're like, okay, you can't deal with the balloon, but you shot down this craft from light years away shows up, and you're like, pew, 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 pew. And it just goes, dude, they think you're dumb.
Well, it's the Genesis 6 fallen angels returned as the prophecy of one Enoch, which was in the Dead Sea Scrolls, says. They were released after 70 generations for the crime, imprisonment in the ground for the crime of creating the Jews in the first place.
Oh,
and I'm the only Nephilim expert in the world who will tell you what happened to them, by the way. The other guys either can't figure it out or just don't have the courage to tell you that they became someone, and that someone happens to be the Jews, who have all of the evidence that they came from the Canaanites, even admitting it. But basically, like, aliens or fallen angels returned. They're here for a limited time. They're angry at us, and they did the same thing now they're doing then, which is Genesis 6 all the way up to the flood. In that time that they were active, they taught mankind knowledge for sin. Abortion and all other forms of sin went through the roof. Violence went through the roof. Weapons and technology and flying aircraft and all the other things that we use now all were given to us, and we started to kill each other with it. That's the legacy of the pre-flood Genesis 6 fallen watchers. There was even a specific angel whose specialty was to teach abortion, named Kokabel. So there are 200 of these things now released to help Satan in the final war to unite the Jew world order. And, this is what we're seeing, all the rise in evil, technology, sin, and abortion all at once. And Planned Parenthood's temples look the same as the ancient world. If I could show you side-by-side pictures in many cases.
What do you think of MH370? Do you have an opinion on that? I know that's a topic that continues to divide our space online. Do you have an opinion on that?
They've been using fallen angel breakaway technology for decades now. They have stuff we don't know about. It doesn't mean it comes from outer space, which is fake. It's all Star Trek and Hollywood. But it does mean that they're light years beyond us in terms of, technology. I mean,
maybe so you think that footage is legitimate? The footage of the plane blipping?
I'm not an expert on deep fake stuff. So without knowing if it's deep faked, and I think people have confirmed it's not with the different editing tools, then yeah, I believe they could disappear something. Why not?
Okay.
I mean, we have fallen angels with basically IQ 5,000 whose last sight on earth before they were entombed for thousands of years was to watch their children literally eat each other to death. They were starving. The Titans were going huge and could not stop growing. Like if you mix a lion and a tiger today, you get an unstoppable cat that never stops growing called a liger. Fortunately, it doesn't live very long because they have a much shorter lifespan than a person would back in that time of about 500 years or longer. These things had puberty for basically 490 years.
That's fascinating.
Never stopped getting
painting,
bigger.
right? Saturn devouring his son. You know that horrible painting.
The Greeks stylized it as the clash of the Titans, and they told a story about what it meant, which was that Kronos did not want to be overthrown by his children, so he kept eating them all. And then Zeus was replaced by a rock as a baby, grew up to a man and killed dad and took over. That's the clash of the Titans, but it doesn't make any sense. In fact, the genetics would point to the reason for the Titans' death being there, just like Genesis 6 talks about. They basically consumed all of the produce of man, and then when they ate everything, they turned against man themselves and started to eat everything, even mankind. They were running out of food, and eventually they ate each other. So the clash of the Titans was really just their children, their firstborn, eating one another to death out of starvation.
Fascinating.
They want revenge, and they don't have much time. They're already damned. This is who's in charge, and this is why, like, it takes God to win this. We would need miracles to win this. We're in prophecy, biblical end times, tribulation, because to put it quite frankly, and I know this is a bit of a black pill, where we are is that the Jews have already poisoned a good majority of the world. Half of the white women, for example, are no longer fertile. We are on the way out. We are nearly extinct. They're bragging about how they've already replaced us and won. There's no way we turn this around without God. And with God, all things are possible. I mean, we were down to 8 people with Noah and the flood, but everybody else on earth had become Jewish. All flesh had become corrupted. Everybody was a Nephilim. So, you know, Jesus told us, as in the days of Noah, what it would be like in the end times. And I think that meant genetic corruption at a large level. We're seeing it with the mRNA. We're also seeing it with mixing animals, GMO crops, all of that. Glow-in-the-dark pigs, goats that have spider silk that grows in their milk that's like an armor.
Crazy.
Just weird stuff.
Crazy.
Nephilim. Demons. This is where demons come from. A demon is a dead Nephilim. A dead Jew, in my opinion. You see why I get in trouble, though, right?
Oh yeah, a little bit.
we
a little
get
bit.
it. We get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm the nicest guy.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be mean. It's just this is the truth as I see it. I can't find a way around it.
You left us
Yeah.
speechless for a quick second. Sam was like, "What? Is it my turn?"
Yeah. I mean,
He's
It's
probably getting
definitely
death
crazy.
threats for hosting me already, and we haven't even
no,
published this yet.
buddy. We have the dangerous. We have the dangerous. You know, probably not going to be able to put ads on this episode, but that's okay because I'd rather have the conversation than not have the conversation. And I do believe that we need to be able to talk about anything all the time, because if you don't talk about anything all the time, this is where you'll never solve a problem anywhere. And you're very brave in coming out and saying what you're saying. Some people are going to agree with some of it. Some people are going to agree with all of it. Some people are not going to agree with any of it. And that's just what we do, is we put the information out there and we let it go. And I think it's interesting because something's happening and people need to, I mean, I hate to say it, but there's so many people that are just asleep and they just don't care. And they'd rather focus on anything but this, because they don't want to believe they brought their kids into like chaos and destruction. And they'd rather just wait to the day when everything crashes and burns. You know, it's like LA with these fires. You know, when you're a one issue voter and your issue is either abortion or stopping hate, you vote in barbarians who come in and burn your city down.